Cool. So my name's Stephen Trippy. A little bit of background on me. I've worked in the food and beverage industry for a little over 4 years right now, and I'm still currently working in a restaurant. Over time, I've kind of seen that data is just overwhelming. It's coming from basically every source in a restaurant. It's all over the place, but I feel like it's underutilized and underexamined and very fleeting. It's really hard to collect. So in this project, with the help of Dr. Shoemaker, a huge thanks to her, I wanted to see if restaurant price correlates with household income, specifically in Harris County, as as kind of one metric of economic health in a given area, in a given geographic area. And I hope that analyzing these will give a more fluid picture of economic levels across Harris County, but also maybe in other areas of the country. So for this project, I used two different databases. I used the American Community Survey database, the American Community Survey database, which is associated with the US Census, and the Yelp database. I used APIs associated with both to collect the data. And for this project, I wanted to look at two different geographic areas, specifically census tract and zip code tabulation area. Census tract is a very fine-grained, just geographic measure of dividing up the country, contains a certain set amount of people per census tract. Whereas a zip code tabulation area is the physical area that a postal zip code represents. So in order to collect this data, the census data was very straightforward to collect. The census API is really easy to use, and R actually has a wrapper that makes it super easy to access data from the American Community Survey. The Yelp database was a little bit more tricky. In order to get restaurant data, I went ahead and took a list of zip codes associated with Harris County, fed those into a list of things to query. And then when I was querying the Yelp database, I passed in each zip code as my location, and that returned a certain number of restaurants. So all in all, I got a little over 5,500 restaurants in a data set. And in order to extract the price information of these restaurants, I went ahead and looked at what Yelp returns, which is the amount of dollar signs indicating how expensive a restaurant is. It ranges from $1 to $4 per restaurant, 4 being the most expensive. And so I took these 1 to 4 discrete dollar signs, converted them into, I took like an average of them. And then if you see here, this bottom graphic actually shows the average amount of dollar signs per area in Harris County. So once that was done, I went ahead and correlated the average amount of dollar signs, or the average price of a restaurant, per median income by zip code tabulation area and census tract. And we actually found that when we tested the linear models, there was a significant relationship between income and restaurant price. And there was actually moderate correlation between the two on both the census tract level and the zip code tabulation area level. So in conclusion, I think that this research, can be expanded on almost infinitely. This does indicate to me that restaurant data is worth analyzing. And I think if you're particularly looking at restaurant price to reflect income of a given area, this can be a very, very helpful metric. And I think this experiment is worth repeating both across different counties and just in different areas in general in terms of the US. So that's about it.
So do you think it's could help for like somebody in the live in a certain area and they know which is the expensive restaurant for it to go to?
Yeah, I think
based on the income of the whole house income, right?
Yeah, I think this data definitely could be used by users. The kind of idea of this was more to look at a general population and figure out the economic makeup of a map, rather than for, say, consumers to look at and find expensive restaurants. But I think that is kind of one side use of this that could be useful. Yeah. So yeah, thank you for your question.
This is the first time I see the display the array by the census tract, because I never do this before. I only do the zip code and FIPS. You know that, right? But this is the first time I see where somebody doing with the census track.
Okay, yeah, nice. Yeah, when I had originally conducted the research, I wasn't planning on going by census tract. But that was something that Dr. Shoemaker recommended, since it's basically as granular as you can get aside from actual households. Um, the one problem I did find when I was looking at census tracts was there were a lot of tracts with just no restaurants in them. Maybe just very, very small tracts that were only homes or only apartment areas. Or it could be that a tract just maybe had one restaurant and the Yelp didn't pick it up when I queried the database.
So
But yeah,
like in the database, in database, it's already declared which one is the restaurant, which one is the apartment, or right? Or you have to do it by yourself.
yeah, so those were coming from different databases. So I actually don't know what type of homes that the income data was gained from. I only know that they were households, right, as reported to the census.
Oh, that's
Yeah, but that came specifically from the census from the American Community Survey database, whereas the restaurant prices came from the Yelp database. So those were separate things. Yeah. But I think that is another direction the research could go. Yelp has reviews on way more than just restaurant. They have reviews on businesses as well. And so if one were to look at, say, any type of business, not just restaurant, I feel like that could be really interesting to kind of analyze whether certain types of businesses reflect anything about a given neighborhood.
wow. It's perfect, man.
Yeah, thank you so much, Tom. I really appreciate your questions and thanks for listening. Yeah, well, feel free to hang out as long as you'd like. If you want me to answer any more questions, I'd be happy to do that.
Oh yeah. Thanks. I give me some minute. I will read through it, and because I just wait for to see how you're doing because you are in my group,
Yeah,
and
yeah, totally. Well, yeah, I mean, thank you again, seriously, and yeah, I'm happy to. I appreciate
because
it.
maybe somebody else just wait for other room and they will come back later. Don't worry.
Yeah, totally. I'd rather it be chill and slow than
Okay.
too full. So it's not that bad. But yeah, thanks again. And it looks like it's just us. So if you'll excuse me one moment, I'm gonna turn the AC on. I'm getting a little hot in here.
Okay, sure. I will come to other room to see how everyone doing, and maybe I can come back later. Okay.
Yeah, definitely. Do what you gotta do.
Okay.
But yeah, thanks again for visiting.
We look. Okay.
All right, thanks. Hey, welcome. How are you doing today?
Hey, it's pretty good. How are you?
Doing awesome, thanks.
Yeah,
Um,
I just visiting around. I just done with my my sections. Yeah, so now I'm kind of like run around see what's gonna be on section 2.
cool. Yeah, nice. Um, well, yeah, if you don't mind, I'll go ahead and give you kind of my pitch.
Sure.
Cool. So my name's Stephen Trippy. A little bit of background on me. I've worked in the restaurant industry for almost 5 years now. And kind of in my time in the restaurant industry, I've noticed that data about restaurants, concerning restaurants, surrounding restaurants is just everywhere and omnipresent, but really underutilized and underseen kind of. So in this project with the guidance of Dr. Shoemaker, I wanted to see if restaurant price in particular correlated with median household income on a geographic level as just kind of one metric of economic health in a given area in Harris County. And in doing this, I kind of hope to paint a more fluid picture of the economic landscape of Harris County in particular, but maybe extending that to other regions in the US. So for this project, I utilized two different databases. I utilized the American Community Survey database, which is connected to the census, which happens every 10 years, and the Yelp database. And to access these, I use two different APIs, Yelp's API and the ACS API. And I wanted to look at two geographic areas in particular, the census tract and the zip code tabulation area. So a census tract is like a really fine-grained level of detail, just very, very small neighborhoods that are collected by the census and grouped into these geographic areas. And zip code tabulation areas are the physical outlines of a zip code that you would get on like from the post office, basically. So the ACS was really easy to collect from. I used a wrapper in R that made it really easy to just stream median income data for 2020. Yelp was a little bit more difficult. I had to actually go in and get a list of zip codes associated with Harris County and then query the Yelp database using these zip codes as the location parameter. So doing this, I did in a loop over and over and over again. And I ended up with almost 6,000 restaurants as part of my data set that I'd be using to look at price. So the way Yelp stores price information, it stores it as $1 to $4. And so I went ahead and just took these dollar signs, returned per zip code and per census tract, and averaged them. And so you can actually see down here at this bottom map, sorry, it's a little bit small, but that's average dollar signs per zip code or ZCTA area. And the darker blue is on average more expensive restaurants, the lighter blue, less expensive restaurants. And after doing analysis, we did find that there was a significant relationship between median income and restaurant price at both the census tract level and the ZCTA level. And we found that there was a weak to moderate correlation between both of these on both the zip code level and the census tract level. So in conclusion, I believe that this research does actually indicate that it's worth looking at restaurant price as one metric to kind of reflect economic health and economic well-being in a given geographic area. I think there's a lot more to look at. We can look at like actual metrics, sales for individual restaurants. There's just so much data out there that the possibilities are almost endless. And I think we can look at other counties too to see if they display the kind of correlation that Harris County does, or if it's more variable in other areas. But there's definitely a lot to be done. And yeah, that's about it. I'll be happy to take questions if y'all have any.
I think this is really an interesting topic that you decided to work on. Since I noticed that in the so for example, like Midtown, you can see that there's so many fancy restaurants. They have like $4, $5 size. But I don't know, it's just like since they are Midtown, so they are like historic areas, right? So they don't really have a lot of wealthy families in it, but maybe next to it. So I noticed that whenever I go to Midtown of Houston's, the area of the restaurant is nice, but it's like a frame areas only. But then the neighborhood next to that restaurant is not really nice.
Right.
Yeah, so the price of the house over there is kind of high just because of that area is old,
Mhm.
but it doesn't say anything about the income level of the neighborhood. So I don't know like how you're gonna base on the restaurant price to determine the income levels.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's why kind of looking at this project, like restaurant price was just meant to be one metric that you could use to analyze, entire economic level. And the original goal was, or the problem that this kind of aims to solve is that the census is only conducted every 10 years. And there's a lot of change happening in economic situations, income levels between those 10 years. And so, but definitely I agree with you that you can't just look at restaurant price and predict income because like we said, the correlation was only, moderate to weak at best. And so I think you're right that it's not the only predictor that you need to analyze.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for this really interesting topics because I always fascinating about like income levels and but like despite of looking at the restaurant price, I'm looking at the value of the house to determine. But then it's like a slap in the face that it's not real since most of the people that live in those areas like midtown and downtown, their families have been there for like a long time, and they might not be wealthy comparing to the house that they live in. So they just like inherited the house for them, right? But
Right.
they didn't really want to sell that house.
Mhm.
But because of the ages of the house, it's kind of old. So the the actually worth the price of the house actually the land that the house had landed on,
Mhm.
not because of the quality of the house. So it's actually a wake up call for me. So like whenever you look at the area, it's not the house that determine the incomes or other multiple factors in order to indicate the incomes of that neighborhood.
Right.
So it's actually a really good idea to look at multiple way to determine it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks for the ideas. I agree that'd be a really interesting project. Yeah. Hey to everybody who just joined. I'll go ahead and restart the little spiel if nobody has any more questions for the moment. And yeah, so I'm Stephen Trippy. A little bit of my background is I've been working in restaurants for going on 5 years now. I currently work in one. And over the years, I've kind of seen that data concerning restaurants is coming from almost everywhere. It's kind of omnipresent. But I believe it's kind of undercollected and underutilized and rarely seen. And so with the help of Dr. Shoemaker, this project, I kind of aimed to look at specifically restaurant price and evaluate whether that would be a useful metric to correlate with household income in a given area on a geographic level. And for this project, we were just looking at Harris County. So yeah, so for the project, I utilized 2 different databases. I utilized the American Community Survey database, which is connected with the census that happens every 10 years. And then I also used the Yelp database. So I used 2 different APIs to collect data from these databases. And I wanted to look in particular when I was collecting this data at the census tract level and the zip code tabulation area level. So census tracts are very, very small geographical boundaries containing small neighborhoods, collections of houses, stuff like that. But they all contain roughly the same amount of people, ideally. Whereas zip code tabulation areas are the physical boundaries provided by postal codes, essentially. So the American Community Survey data was really simple to collect. R has a wrapper that allowed me to really easily query median income from the ACS database. And so I went ahead and did that both on the census tract level and the zip code level. Yelp was a little bit more difficult. I had to actually take a list of zip codes that was associated with Harris County and feed this into the Yelp API as a location parameter. And I just queried that database over and over and over again until I got a subset of restaurants that I thought was going to be representative enough of Harris County. And so I ended up with almost 6,000 restaurants that I was going to be using to look at price for. One thing about the Yelp database and how its price information is stored, it's stored as a collection of dollar signs, so 1 to 4, $1 being the least expensive restaurant and 4 being the most expensive. So what I went ahead and did was I converted these dollar signs into discrete numbers, and then I took an average of the amount of dollar signs, basically. And the bottom map here, as you can see, is a map of the average price, the average number of dollar signs that Yelp gave me, specifically by the ZCTA, the zip code tabulation area. And so, as you can see, the dark blue indicates more expensive restaurants, whereas lighter blue indicates less expensive restaurants. So I went ahead and built 2 linear models for these to correlate median income by census tract with restaurant price per census tract, and median income by ZCTA per restaurant price with the ZCTA. And I found that there was, in fact, significant relationships between the 2 variables, between the 2 variables on both models in both cases. And I found that a moderate to weak correlation did exist, both by census tract by income and with the ZCTA by income. So in conclusion, definitely the restaurant price is just one variable to consider when you're measuring the economic status of given areas. There are a lot more, and because of the weak to moderate correlation, obviously it doesn't stand on its own. But I found that this project did help in kind of proving that restaurant price was a significant factor when you're looking at income, and I think it could contribute to more complex models taking in other factors. So that's all I have, but I'd be happy to entertain any questions y'all might have.
That was a really interesting topic to pick. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I had a good time working on it, and I feel like I learned a lot. Definitely the amount of data out there with the American Community Survey is mind-blowing. So if y'all ever get a chance to work with any of it, I definitely recommend it.
So for data analysis, did you use R?
I did, yeah, everything was done in R.
Okay, and then so you use the API to extract data, and then you stored it in what, a database using?
No, I just stored it on my computer. It was small enough to where I didn't have to worry about putting it in a database, but definitely for larger projects, I feel like a database would be required if you're working over multiple counties. But yeah.
Okay, really cool project.
Yeah.
I was really excited to join this presentation since it's in like data science. I'm a data science major myself, so yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm personally kind of bummed that it seems like all the data science presentations are happening in this block, so I won't be able to see them, but I definitely love to hear how they are. But, yeah.
Well, hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Yeah, you too. Thanks for your time.
Thank you for the presentation. This was really good.
Yeah, thank you, Rachel. Thank you for listening.
Hi. Thank you.
Yeah, you take care. Hey, welcome. How are you doing? I will go ahead and give you the presentation if that works. So my name's Stephen Trippy. A little bit of background on me. I've worked in the food and beverage industry for almost 5 years, and I still currently work in one. So kind of over my time there, I've seen that data is overflowing. It's kind of omnipresent. It's coming out of every POS and every restaurant, but I believe it's undercollected and underexamined in the greater scheme of things. So in this project, with the help of Dr. Shoemaker, I wanted to try and find if just the metric of restaurant price correlated with household income in a given geographic area. Just this being one metric of economic health that we can use to draw conclusions from. So I utilized two different databases. One was associated with Yelp, and one came from the American Community Survey, which is the census, pretty much. It happens once every 10 years. I used APIs associated with both to collect data. And when I was doing this, I wanted to look at two particular geographic areas, census tract and zip code tabulation area. So a census tract is a very fine-grained measure of just geographic area, collection of houses, a neighborhood, that sort of thing. A zip code tabulation area is the physical demarcation of a zip code or a postal code. And they tend to be a bit bigger than census tracts. So the American Community Survey data was pretty simple to collect. I used an RWrap or a wrapper for the API, just sent a couple of requests through, and I got income data based on census tract and zip code tabulation area, specifically for Harris County. The Yelp information was a little bit more difficult. I had to query the database using every single zip code in Harris County as the location parameter. And I had to do this in a loop over and over and over again. And when I was finished, I got about a little under 6,000 restaurants that I put into a data set to gain price information from. So Yelp actually stores price information by restaurant in the form of dollar signs, $1 being the least expensive restaurant generally, and $4 being the most expensive. So I took this information, I grouped it by census tract and zip code, and then I got averages for each of these. And if you look at the bottom map down here, the mean restaurant price by ZCTA, that's just the average restaurant price per that geographic area. So the dark blue are the most expensive restaurants, the light blue are the least expensive. Anyways, we took this price information now that we had it by both geographic areas, and we correlated it with median income by census tract and by zip code tabulation area. And we found that there was actually a significant relationship between both of these in both of these models. And there was a weak to moderate correlation in both cases. So just based on that data, we can say that there is a significant relationship between household income and restaurant price, at least on these geographic levels. So like I said before, this definitely isn't kind of the end all be all. There's a lot more research to be done. And I feel like if you're just looking at restaurant price in an area alone, it's not enough to tell you the makeup of that neighborhood, given that the correlation wasn't that strong. But it was my hope that this could indicate that restaurant price and just restaurant metrics in general are useful data to examine when it comes to the economic makeup of an area. And I think that definitely there's just a lot more research to be done and a lot more data to be collected and used to paint a fluid picture of something like Harris County or other counties. So that's about it, but I'd be happy to take any questions you might have. Sorry, I see the chat. Let me pull that up really quick. Cool. Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks for joining, and I appreciate your time. Thank you very much. That's very kind. definitely had a lot of fun working on it.